Hello, and welcome to FPL Have a Beer, where I invite you to have a beer with me and discuss FPL, because what would be better? Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video today. So this is the first of a series of videos I'm making called Meet the Content Creator Series. And as this channel is focused mainly on FPL content and FPL mental health, I'm not going to interview people and ask them when are they going to play their wild card, who should I captain this week. It's going to be more focused on their experience, content creation, and their views on mental health. Although we probably will ask a few questions, like trying to get some of Tom's top tips here on how our FPL team should play well. So I'm delighted to welcome my first guest, who is from Golden FPL. I think you've been making content for about 2 years. Is that right, Tom?
Yeah, a couple of years. Started off as a podcast, not actually about FPL, and then ended up with me making videos on my own about FPL, yeah.
Okay, awesome. Welcome to the channel.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
So I was wondering if you could just start off by telling us a little bit about yourself, like who do you support, what are your first memories of football, stuff like that.
Yeah, all right. My name's Tom. I'm 27. I live in Bristol. Earliest memories of football. Genuinely, it's probably reading the Match magazine when I was like 7 or 8 years old.
Is that still going, Match magazine? I remember.
I don't know if it's still going now, but
Yeah.
that was my weekly football dose back then. And yeah, been a football fan ever since. Grew up supporting two teams, which I get a bit of stick for. I support Man United and Bristol City. I live in Bristol now, right near the ground, so I've got a season ticket at Bristol City. Probably my dad got me into fantasy football, I'd say just before COVID. I never really took it that seriously. And then I moved to Bristol, got my season ticket at Bristol City, and I had my YouTube channel sort of on the side where I did a little podcast with a friend. And at that point, a friend called Sam, and at that point, I just decided to start taking it a bit more seriously, really, uploading a few times a week, and things have just progressed from there, really.
So that's interesting. So you got into it not during COVID and the lockdowns, but straight away after.
Yeah, it was kind of a mental health related thing for why I got into it, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah, I just think my life at the time was lacking things to do outside of just showing up to work every day. And I figured, yeah, weekly podcast with a friend of mine was a little bit of social interaction, get to talk about fantasy football. And yeah, it just stemmed from there, really.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm similar in terms of supporting teams. I'm a Newcastle supporter, which people always question because I've absolutely no connection to Newcastle at all. It was just when I got into football, it was 94-95 season, and then Kevin Keegan's attacking Newcastle and Man United, and I was just glory hunting, and I chose Newcastle, which, wasn't probably the best choice. So if Bristol played Man United, who would you support then?
Well, they did actually 3 or 4 years ago. And I supported Bristol City, to be fair. And okay. Bristol City won the game, actually, which is quite interesting. But yeah, we beat a Jose Mourinho Man United with Ibrahimovic and Pogba and everyone in it. But yeah, I'd say Bristol City probably my number one team.
Yeah. My local one's Leighton Orient, but anyway. Yeah, so you've told us a bit about... so you first started playing around the start of COVID, is that right?
Yeah, so I actually played a game. I don't know if you would know it yourself, but Sky Sports used to run a fantasy football game. And that was the first fantasy game that I played alongside my dad. And every year we entered into his local pub's mini league. And the way that Sky Sports fantasy football worked is you pay to enter the league. Sky Bet would keep the cash and then pay out to the winner at the end. So it was all really well managed. You didn't have to trust anyone with the money.
They've just stopped it this season, haven't they?
Yeah, it's a real shame. It was, in my opinion, the best fantasy football game that was out there.
Rules
you got bonus points for completed passes, tackles, and you'd also have to pick a captain for each game day rather than each game week. Each game day, a day that there was a Premier League football game on, you had to pick a captain, which meant that you really had to plan your team to make sure you had a captain. It was brilliant. The rules sort of worked perfectly. But yeah, they just unfortunately decided to can it this year, which is a shame.
Didn't the guy from Hub win it? Trying to remember his name. The guy
an absolute legend named Paul McNulty won it a couple of years ago. To be fair, the Fantasy Football Hub crew have got loads of former winners of various games. I think Dan Cox is a former winner of it as well, who's affiliated with Hub. But yeah, Paul McNulty is a recent winner, and he had a weekly podcast. He literally did a podcast the season that he won it,
Because usually they sign people up once they've won things. It's rare to have someone who's actually won when they're doing it. So, do you have any idea why they scrapped it? I know we're going a bit on a tangent.
Yeah, I just don't think they had anyone managing it properly. So there was definitely rumours going around a couple of years before they actually canned it that they were going to cancel it. And then it suddenly got picked up by someone within Sky Bet and then just dropped off. I just think they didn't see it as the whole idea for the game really was to drive people into Sky Bet to place football bets. And I think they just realised that it wasn't necessarily working. Yeah. And they were putting up a £50,000 first place prize. And yeah, I don't know. Maybe they just saw it as a profit decision and just got rid of it.
That's what I imagine it would be, yeah. So I'm going to say your early memories of fantasy football, is there any of them that stick out? I imagine that's not actually that long ago, but...
Well, actually, it's funny you should say that. I've got a really rogue one. I don't know how old I was. It was probably a long time ago. I remember my dad playing in a work mini league at like Sun Dream Team or something back in the day. Yeah, and I remember picking a team at the start of the season with him, like sat over his shoulder or something, picking a team, and he'd let me enter for a bit of fun. And the one memory I have is I picked Brad Friedel in goal. That was my memory. And that was the season where I think he's got the top score of any FPL goalkeeper in history in a single season. And I think I picked him in that season in the Sun Dream Team. So that's my earliest memory.
I actually made a video last night, just a short one, about my first ever failed attempt to set up it was a Sun fantasy football team. I was about 9 and you had to ring up. And my parents wouldn't let me do it because it was about a 20-minute call, cost about 20 quid. And I got to the 11th player and my mum walked in, so I slammed the phone.
Oh, no.
But, yeah. Okay, so let's, if you saw it, we move on to maybe talk about your experience as a content creator a bit. So when did you decide, you kind of mentioned about this a little bit anyway, but when did you decide to go from being a content creator to... an FPL player to a content creator? You said mental health reasons.
Yeah, I would say I don't know if it's more of a masculine thing, but I would just say I was at a point in my life where I was pretty lonely. I lived in a town where I didn't really have any friends, to be completely honest with you.
Where's that?
And like I said, sorry,
where's that?
It was a town, not to disrespect the town. It's just I didn't have any friends that lived there. It was a town in Somerset called Yeovil at the time.
For work,
they got a small football.
There for work.
Yeah, pretty much. I had a job based down in Somerset, and the nearest big town in a way to where I worked was Yeovil, so I opted to live there. And it did a job. I took the hit on the location to try and progress my career a little bit. But yeah, beyond going to work and going to the gym, I didn't really have much else to do. And rather than just sitting at home playing Xbox, I decided to start a weekly podcast with a friend of mine. Did that probably for a year, I would say, consistently doing every week. And then another event happened in my life. Basically, a former girlfriend of mine, she took a job in New Zealand. So we had a bit of a long distance relationship, I guess, for a period of time. And again, my life was missing something while she was away. So I just decided, right, I'm going to go all in on this YouTube thing and spend all of the spare time I have on making content, trying to build this channel into something. And I wouldn't say it's particularly special, 9,500 subs. I don't claim to be a big player or anything, but yeah, I feel I've made a bit of an impact with that from that time, I guess.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. It's awesome. Do go and subscribe to Tom's channel, obviously. Yeah, I know what you mean, actually. I had a similar experience I moved up to Derby about 10 years ago to try and... it was mainly because I live in London and wanted to get cheaper rent, but it didn't work out because I just didn't have so many friends around and stuff. And you're part-time, aren't you? You're not a full-time content creator yet.
Oh, yeah, I don't even think you could call it part-time. I got a full-time job alongside this and loads of other hobbies. So, yeah, I just, every spare second of time I have where I'm not doing anything else, I'd make my YouTube videos, basically.
Awesome. And so what were your early experiences like of content creating, your first couple of podcasts?
Just very raw. I mean, I've kept them up. You can scroll down to our earliest podcasts and videos. I think I bought a microphone. That was the only bit of kit I had alongside my laptop. And it was just very basic and graphics wise was pretty crap, but I think the stuff that we said, which was the important stuff, was still like made sense and stuff. So, but yeah, graphics wise and yeah, my running of the podcast was probably a bit shoddy to start with.
Yeah, I can get you there. Viewers can see my attempt to put up a green screen behind me, which just looks like the curtains, really. And how's the experience changed? You've been doing it for 2 years now, is that right?
Yeah, I just think one of the things I have done, and I don't know if it's like a more of an entrepreneurship mindset than just a YouTuber mindset, but I feel like I've had a bit of a mindset shift over this time where I've turned from a consumer of content to just a creator, and I think that's a mindset shift that I've gone through to the point where, and it's no offense to the other great FPL content creators that are out there, I simply just don't have the time to consume it, to be honest. So I'm just purely focused on making it and being a content creator now. So I guess that's one major change.
That's interesting. This isn't a question I've got written down, but a lot of the time the content creator, a criticism of content creators is they're just copying it. Well, they say the same thing, but I guess that's a sign of the fact that you're saying the right things. You're not actually copying each other, are you?
I promise, if I say the same things as other content creators, it's purely organic. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not because I'm copying them.
Yeah, no, I definitely. I think it's because if the captaincy's the right one or this player's generally a good player, you're going to come to the same conclusions, aren't you? So what would you say are the positives and negatives about being a content creator? Maybe the positives first.
Oh, I just really enjoy it. Like being able to earn a bit of money by talking about a game that you love to play is just an absolute dream. And the one thing I love the most is doing live streams and connecting and chatting to people that are in the live chat. I've got a really good group of viewers. Some of them are all regular, sort of know them, I guess, on a first name virtual basis. So I know what's going on in their lives and stuff in the chat. It's just brilliant, to be honest. I really love it. And yeah, I just go back to it. It's just an absolute pleasure to make content and make a bit of money about something you love.
How do you communicate with them? Is it on Twitter or do you have a Discord or anything?
Just in the live chat on YouTube, mate.
Oh, okay. And you, yeah. I imagine when I see someone like Andy who's got like the 400,000 subscribers, he must.
Oh yeah. My chat doesn't go quickly enough yet.
If I make a comment, it's left the screen before I've had a chance. By the time I've pressed return, that sounds really good. Yeah, The community in general seems really nice and welcoming as well, doesn't it? What about the negatives?
I would probably say one of the negatives is that it's quite like it's a lonely thing. And I mean that by saying that there aren't many, because I see it as like a side hustle basically. And I just don't know many people in my local area that work full time and then are trying to build something else on the side. I've got a good like virtual community of good friends that I've grown to meet and know as a result of this. But physical friends that can relate to me, I don't really have, if that makes sense. A lot of the mindset is just work full time and then have fun on the weekends, which isn't really the lifestyle that I live at the moment.
You don't like have a mini league at work or people you could talk to about it there?
Not really, no. And it's not, I don't, actually, no, that's a lie. There is a company-wide mini league, to be fair. But I was kind of seconded away from my company for the last year. So I was a little bit out of action with it. But yeah, actual people in my direct team at work, I don't think any of them are really FPL people, to be honest.
Even in work leagues, there's only usually a couple of real hardcores, if any, isn't there? But yeah, so this was a question I was going to be interested. So I've been watching content for about 10 years. And I remember watching Andy's first streams when he was literally like the first person out there. I think maybe FPL Scout, but he was like the first individual. And I'm wondering, obviously it's difficult to compare, but I'm wondering if you think how much more difficult it might be to create a YouTube channel now when there's so many already out there, and I'm guessing probably lots of people trying to create one compared to what it would have been maybe even just 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. And the way that the YouTube algorithm works as well. And it's, I absolute like complete respect for Andy and all the other big content creators out there, because they've put in the work before I did to build their audience to get to the levels that they're at. But yeah, as a new aspiring content creator, you kind of do have to fight with those bigger creators in the algorithm to get the views. That's just how it works. And naturally, if their videos are getting more views than you are, they're going to be promoted more in the algorithm. So it is just naturally harder to get into the game. But I mean, if I were to offer anyone advice, it's just not to give up, just keep going. I think for me, it took 300 videos to hit 1,000 subscribers.
Wow.
So you can like imagine the amount of work that went into that. You've got to do it for the love of it, I think, in the FPL space, and then money and getting monetized, etc., is a reward that comes as a result of loving the process, really.
Yeah, I guess that's one of the things I hear a lot or see a lot of videos about people complain that they've tried to make a YouTube channel on a different topic where they really weren't interested in. I guess one of the things about doing it on something you really love does mean you've got that passion to come back, doesn't it?
I think it's also better for the viewer as well. I think people aren't stupid when they watch your videos. So if you're not engaged or passionate about a topic, they can tell.
Yeah.
And I think you have to, if you're going to be a YouTuber, you have to do a channel about something you're genuinely passionate about and would just do for free as a hobby.
How did you come up with the channel name, Golden Goal?
I don't know. I think it was just me and my mate Sam at the time that started the podcast together. We were just rattling off ideas, and Golden Goal was the one. And then I made the black and gold logo that I've got. I made that on like Canva or something like that for free, and it's just stayed ever since, really.
Do they still have Golden Goal now? Because they had it and then they replaced it with Silver Goal or something, didn't they? And,
I don't think I've seen a game with a golden goal in it since we started the channel anyway.
No, because Extra Time is just back to plain old Extra Time now, isn't it? Yeah. It's a bit of a retro name then in that sort of...
yeah, there you go.
Yeah. This is a bit of a random one. Have you ever been recognised as Golden Goal Tom outside of stream? You have been?
So it's happened twice.
Okay.
So one of them was someone I was in contact with on Twitter. So I wouldn't like say he's a viewer, but my parents live in Somerset, and as a result, I go to the Glastonbury Festival almost every year. And I got recognised walking back from the toilets with toilet roll in hand at Glastonbury Festival. I think his name's Dan, a Scottish lad named Dan, really nice guy. But that was my first one. And then I won't say too much about what I do for work because it's just not appropriate to share on the internet. But I went to about a month ago, I went to a big roundtable meeting with about 50 or 60 people there. I didn't really have much input into the meeting. I was kind of just there to sit and listen and take notes. And there was a guy sat opposite the table from me who kept looking at me like he recognized me, but I didn't know who he was. And we had a coffee break in the meeting, went downstairs, and where we had the meeting, there were like these self-service coffee machines. So basically they'd made all their canteen staff redundant. You got to pay for your own coffee. Right. And we were trying to figure out how the tills work together. And then the conversation developed. He was like, I recognize you from somewhere. And yeah, got recognized in a work meeting, which was interesting. But yeah, we had a really nice chat and went for lunch together. It was really nice.
Awesome, yeah. Were they fans, or did they just recognise it? Were they like, oh my God, you're Tom? I imagine like if I posted to someone, I would be like that.
I don't like using the word fan though, because I don't feel like I do anything that's like fan worthy as such. But he said he watches my videos every week. Jake was his name. If Jake watches this, hello Jake. But yeah, you call him a fan if you like, but he just said he watches my content every week, which I was very grateful to hear.
I call him a fan. I'm a fan of all the FPL content creators.
I'm
using myself there. Okay, awesome. So yeah, I was gonna, as I said earlier, mental health's a bit of a focus to the channel, as I'm a psychologist who, although I've been playing for 10 years, the way I've kind of got into FPL from a professional perspective is doing research on mental health. So I've done a couple of videos, I've done a specific video talking about my research and practical tips on mental health, and I've also talked about some of the possible things in FPL which cause stress that are possibly not necessary, like the deadline as it currently stands. I read a comment about someone saying they've been getting up in India, or it was India or America, saying they've been getting up at 3:30 every morning. I can't imagine doing that. But so I just wanted to ask, has FPL ever had any effect on your mood or mental health? Has it become better or worse as a content creator in that sense?
Yeah, I would say, well, obviously, yeah, I'd be lying to you if I said that FPL didn't put me in a bad mood or a good mood at times. I think it's all about how you deal with it once it happens, right? But we'll probably get onto that in a second. But the content creation has definitely helped. I feel like at times I would struggle to, I would struggle to play FPL on its own. Because like I say, the content creation gives me like a sense of purpose. So even if like my team doesn't do so well, I know I can just sit down, forget about my team and just make a video like recommending players or something. I do find that just sitting down and doing the graphics and recording a video, doing the live streams, etc., it gives me a real sense of purpose in my life, which I think is really important for my mental health. I think that's almost essential, really.
Do you feel? I mean, I imagine if I was a content creator, I would feel more pressure to have my team doing well. So I've got a pretty good rank history. Like last season, I finished 3,000, but this year I'm 5 million.
Oh, bloody hell, well done.
Which is pissing me off a bit, but I'm sure I'd be 10 times more pissed off if I was a content creator. So that doesn't affect you at all?
To be honest, I'll be completely honest with you. I wouldn't say I've had a bad rank since I've really started making YouTube videos. So I've not necessarily experienced that yet firsthand. Last season, I think I finished.
You're about 100 in the world.
Sorry?
You're about 100k at the minute, aren't you?
Yeah, like 167k at the moment. And last season, I finished within the top 100k, which I was very happy with. So I don't really know if I feel qualified to answer that question because just hasn't been the case. And I don't really sound cocky saying that, but the two just haven't coincided yet. But I think I'll be able to take it quite well. Like, I'm always open about my rank. Sometimes I'll share it a bit more if it's really good, because obviously it's going to help for views and stuff, which is what I'm interested in. I hope people don't mind that. But I'm never going to shy away from sharing my rank or something if someone asks for it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've seen, I think the Raptors struggling a bit this year, and I've watched Andy one year. I say struggle, for him struggles like 300,000 or 400,000, but interesting to see like those, how they deal with it. It's really good to see someone like Andy. He seems to. When I watch his videos, I find that he actually calms me down because he's had a bad game where he goes, I don't really mind. I'll move on. But that's interesting.
I think one thing I thought the good thing for a content creator to do when they have a bad rank, I think you've got to set a kind of an example of how to deal with it, right? If you can have a laugh and joke about yourself, I think that's kind of half the game, really. Which again, it sounds like Andy and maybe FPL Raptor are doing as well, right? Sometimes you just do have a bad rank because you're unlucky, and you just got to take it on the chin and have a laugh about it, basically.
Yeah. I suppose one of the other things, it's interesting you say that jumping back into it helps, because usually if I have a bad game week, I won't look at it again until for 3 or 4 days. Whereas if I've had a good game rank, a good game week, I'm back on the computer on Sunday night planning everything out. So that's really interesting. So what would you say? I guess you can answer this as a content creator or as a just a player. What would you say are the positive parts of playing FPL from your mental health, and the negative parts as well?
Well, I think the first thing is it makes, if you have players from, I say, more rogue teams, it makes almost every game in the Premier League worth keeping an eye on or watching. Whereas previously, if I didn't play fantasy football, I'd only really be interested in how Man United got on. So now you've got 9 more games to take an interest in and watch and have like a buy-in into. Another thing that's just popped into my mind, it's not necessarily something that I did, but I know sports betting is really popular. And I think the kind of mental rush or feeling you get from sports betting is similar to what you get from FPL if your players perform well or don't perform well, etc. So I think for some people, and I know it to be the case for some people, it's a more healthy alternative to gambling on sports, basically.
Yes. Yeah, and I think some of the research we've done is actually directly when we've interviewed. This wasn't actually one of my studies, but when our group interviewed people, a lot of people actually said that was one of the positive ones, that they'd been addicted to gambling and it was like a gambling substitute. I guess in the same way smoking these is a bit like a cigarette replacement for myself. Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, not at all. And yeah, I think I have a bit of a moral compass when it comes to gambling. I think most of it is a bit crap, to be honest, because most of the companies pry on the addicted to get like slot machines and terrible bets, etc. And that's kind of how they work. And I know there are some, Fan Team, I'm looking at Fan Team as an example of a fantasy football game that employs a bit of gambling. But I think in like my moral compass, it sits a bit different, because if you've got 38 game weeks that you've hedged a bit of money on, you have a bit more like personal control over things. Anyway, that's going down a rabbit hole of gambling.
I'm actually thinking about the next research I do, perhaps being on Fan Team, because I think that's the only gambling direct FPL. But to see what effects it has on mental health compared to, I mean, what do we really get out? I mean, apart from content creators, what could you win? A couple of Premier League tickets, I think. Essentially, so it'll be interesting to see the difference. Yeah. And the negative aspects from your point?
I think it's just if you have a bad game week, isn't it? Yeah. Or you make a mistake that you know you would have done differently next time. I personally find that if I have a bad game week, but I look back on my transfers and I put myself in the shoes again, and I know I'd make the same transfers, I can kind of take that on the chin.
Yeah.
But where I know I've made a mistake, or like forgotten a deadline, or been rash and taken a hit when I shouldn't have, those are the times where I kick myself and feel a bit rubbish, to be honest.
Yeah, if you have time, if you watch, so basically I made a video about deadline streams and whether they're a good thing or a bad thing, watching them. I won't go over all of it, but basically I mentioned in that video, one of the study's not actually out yet, we're still trying to publish it, but we did one of the things we measured was the amount that people make last minute transfers, and it was negatively positively correlated basically with having more anxiety, stress, etc. from mental health. And I think one of the reasons that may be, particularly if you've put all your plans into, you've done your research a week and then you decide to move Saka out because you find out 10 minutes before the deadline that he's going to be out, and then you do poorly, it's going to wind you up in it, especially as an engaged player.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we all have to take a bit of, I wouldn't say individual responsibility, I don't know if that's the right thing to say, but yeah, I mean, you got to have a decision-making process in that regard, I guess, and always be aware, because you're absolutely right. You can get a leak 10 minutes before the deadline that suggests that all your plans are out the window, right? That's just the nature of the game.
Yeah, I try not to watch them unless I'm on wildcard and I know that I can change everything.
Fair enough.
Someone like me who's 5 million, who's struggling with I'm not struggling with mental health, but someone who's struggling with their mental health this season, what advice would you give them?
I've actually made a video on this, so I'm just going to try and remember some of the things I said in the video. First thing would be, honestly, you just have to have multiple plates. I call it plate spinning, but you just have to have other things going on in your life that you can go to that isn't FPL. And for some people, that might be difficult. I'm conscious of it, but yeah, for me, I've got other hobbies that I can pay attention to if FPL is not going so well or I need a distraction. And I think it's important that other people try and do that, basically. So yeah, if you do have a bad game week, like you say, want to put your team down for 3 or 4 weeks, you can go and do something else which picks up your mood and stuff like that. I think that's really important.
Yeah, I actually starting to think of creating YouTube videos a bit of a hobby, or playing computer games, or just to get your mind away from it. Yeah. Okay, this is perhaps a bit of a conceptual one. Do you think there are any changes that FPL could make to help the mental health base of their players? If that question makes sense. It's a bit convoluted.
Yeah, I really don't know. I haven't had time to think about my answer to these questions, but I really don't know.
I will say I offered to send you the script beforehand, but you wanted to be...
No, you did. You absolutely did. I just preferred to do it like...
what's the word? Genuine with your...
Yeah. What do you think? Do you have any thoughts on that? I might agree with some of what you have to say.
I think moving the deadline up until the first kickoff. So
yeah, that's a fair shout.
People don't have to get up at ridiculous times in the morning. What was the other one that I saw mentioned recently? I would change the price rise system.
Oh God, yeah, that's a good shout, actually. Or just make it completely transparent. I think would be good. If the price rise system was on the FPL website, so you know it was 100% fact and truth, then I agree. I think they should do that.
They should definitely do that, and I think then you're still going to be. I mean, I only do it when I'm on wildcard, but you're still going to be going and checking the FPL website every night. what I would like to see, because I guess you do have to have. You don't have to, but I think it helps having price changes because, like when you get Palmer, he costs what was it, 4?
He can't be 4.5 million for a season, can
exactly.
he? That just doesn't make sense.
Even when he ended up at like 6, but that was still well underpriced. But I would have it that those changes don't come in until the game updates. So if he's going to go up 0.3, he doesn't go up 0.3 to the next game week, if that makes sense. And that would just
totally.
You can forget about it. You can forget about price changes for the week then. And I don't actually see why they don't do that, because I know that FPL is about engagement, increasing engagement in the Premier League, but I don't think it's supposed to be increasing engagement of going and checking FPL statistics at midnight.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
So yeah, I've ended up answering. Anything you'd add to that?
No, I'm really glad that you said those things. I think I completely agree with you on both of those. Unfortunately, there's the point you said on the deadline. I don't think there's like a 100% solution to that, because there's always going to be people that get screwed on the time zone that they're in. It's just the nature of a worldwide game. But having the deadline on the first kickoff would really help leaks. Most of the leaks that you get just wouldn't be valuable anymore, because you know what that first team looks like, unless someone gets a leak for like a 3 p.m. kickoff or whatever. But that's always never going to stop either.
No, I'm thinking like at least the person who's getting up in India can just get up and check the BBC Sport website for the lineup rather than have to listen to one of you lovely deadline streamers for an hour and a half. If that makes sense. Awesome. Okay. So I just thought I'd just sort of finish off by asking a couple of more generic, how's your season going question. So first of all, how is your season going?
Yeah, I think really well. I said my rank was 167k, which I think after 9 game weeks I'm really happy with the position that I'm in. I've used a couple of chips though. I got lucky when I triple captain. I triple captain Haaland against Ipswich. Obviously he scored the hat trick, but I completely accept I got lucky there, right? I mean, it could have gone either way really.
A lot of people triple captained in this week and it didn't work out so well, didn't there?
And there's just nothing you can do about that, because all of like the betting data, I know I said I have a moral compass about gambling, but using the gambling data to inform your FPL decisions is a good thing to do. Yeah. But all of the data suggested that he would either perform the same or better than he did in that Ipswich game. So I don't think you cannot point a finger at someone that triple captained him against Southampton and say it was a bad decision.
Didn't he have an XG of 1 point something as well?
I think it might have been his highest XG of the season in a single game, something like that. So It's just unlucky, isn't it?
And is this going well compared to other seasons? Not so well?
Yeah, I think just trying to remember back to last season, I think I probably had a bit of a slower start than this. Not that like I think I could win it, but I think at 167k overall in game week 9, I've got a real good chance if I just play it well. I've got a real good chance for a strong finish, which I don't think I could have said last season. I think last season I only really got myself into the top 100k in like the final 4 or 5 game weeks because I had Mateta in my team, and he was the sole reason I got in the top 100k.
I couldn't stand him last. I reckon I'd have probably finished in the top 1k if it hadn't have been for him. But it's funny every season, because I did finish in the top 3k last year. Usually every season I name my team I hate the player who pissed me off the most last season. And I was trying to get my team registered quickly this time to get a low. And I ended up calling it I hate Callum Wilson, which was actually the player who pissed me off the most this season before, because I couldn't think of anyone. But now you say that, it should have been I hate Mateta, because
I got screwed by it. I can't remember if it was last season or the season before, but I think there was one game week where Callum Wilson, I think he scored a hat trick and got 2 assists or something like that. He had an absolutely mental game week, and I was planning to transfer him in before the deadline when that happened. I was on my deadline stream 2 or 3 minutes before the deadline. I made the transfer and the game crashed.
Oh, no.
So I couldn't bring in Callum Wilson, who's genuinely, I think he scored a hat trick and got 2 assists in one game, and the game crashing prevented me getting him in.
That's a convenient excuse. I mean, it's so sad. No, I think that's the exact game line where that was the exact, because a lot of people went, it was either Wilson or Isaac, and I went for Isaac, and I don't even think I had Wilson in my team, and I think that's why I said that. I think it stopped me getting in the top 10k that season.
Oh
Well,
man,
of
what
course
can you do?
of course, it wasn't any bad season of me. It was all Callum Wilson's fault. But what do you think of? Do you? Okay, I'll ask you for a bit of personal advice. Do you think it's possible for someone who's down in 4.5 million to? So my goal every year is to get in the top 100k, which I've done sort of about 50% of the time playing. Do you reckon I could still get back up there?
100%. Yeah, you're at what, only less than a third of the way through this. Well, much less than a third of the way through the season. Yeah, I definitely think so. Yeah,
Yeah, thanks to that. Thank you for.
100%
Are you
think
going
so.
to give me
Yeah.
any reasons?
Well, I just think there's so much opportunity to make up ground, isn't there? And I think the beauty of the game this season is that there are so many pickable good players that you can just go different and still pick a good player. Like you don't have to pick a differential for the sake of being different. You can pick a differential who is actually a good player. Like I could name 4 or 5 decent forwards, 10 decent midfielders you could have in your team, for example. And I think just that huge pile of players to pick from just opens up all the opportunity for you, to be honest.
I'm finding it a lot. The changes have been quite. I mean, I'm probably saying this because it's my crappy season, but I've found the changes in the prices. If I was doing well, I'm sure I'd be thinking this is awesome. I'm really getting to show my ability now. But because it's kind of screwed, I kind of feel like I'm playing poorly because of the changes. It's probably the wrong way to think about it. So go on.
Yeah, I don't know if you'd agree. Well, you probably would actually, based on what you just said there. But I think the price changes this season have been the most mental of any season I remember in FPL. And I never make early transfers ever. I kind of made a rule that I would never do it because I always value information over price changes. But this season, I've been forced into 2 or 3 early transfers really reluctantly because the player that I desperately wanted, I wasn't going to be able to afford anymore. And with the way it goes, even the price prediction tools aren't necessarily accurate all the time. So a player could go up even when the tools are suggesting, it's going to be 2 or 3 days before they do. So yeah, it's been an absolute cluster, I think, in terms of price changes this season.
Yeah, the price changes. I think I made a transfer in week 2, which is the only. I always go the night before, unless I'm going to watch the deadline stream. And I went about 3 days before, and it screwed. I can't remember who it was now, and it screwed me over. And that was the first time I'd done it in about 2 years, and I was like, right, back to the night before strategy. But yeah. But I think the prices are. I think it's making a big variance in the game as well because last season a lot of us we had Palmer, we had Saka.
Oh, you're talking about player prices rather than price changes. Yeah, got it.
And we so like a few weeks ago, I was actually having a decent game week, and then Palmer scored a hat trick against Wolves, and all of a sudden I was just. But you can't have them all in your thing.
You can't have them all. And I think that's a really good point, actually, because, the difference probably between mine and your team is likely 2 or 3 players, right? I've had 2 or 3 players in my team at a time when you haven't, and that's the style difference. Right? I haven't had Palmer much, but I've had both Haaland and Salah the whole time, which I think has been a bit of a difference maker for me.
Oh, okay. You went on one of those guys. And you haven't got rid of either of them so far?
No, I've kept them both.
And you planning to stick with that?
Yeah, I'm looking at my team at the moment, and I've got Haaland, Palmer, and Salah in it now. And I don't see any reason to get rid of Haaland because I'm just really happy with the rest of my team.
You must be really cheap elsewhere.
Yeah, I've got Chris Wood, Jimenez, and Bumo and Rogers, and then I've got a pretty cheapo defence, to be fair, at the moment. I've got Guardiola, Rico Lewis, Aït-Nouri, and Aina of Nottingham Forest. So I think it's relatively well balanced.
Yeah, they're all doing pretty well, those lads, aren't they?
Yeah, so, I think, and I've got lucky as well. I'm completely aware that I've gotten a bit lucky this season for sure.
Final question, which I'd be amiss with your knowledgeable self here. Is there any general tips you could give to someone, not from a mental health perspective, but how to do well at FPL? Not just this season, but as a general kind of rules.
Yeah, I've probably got a couple. One of them, and it's a very simple one, but it's, I think, been the main contributor to my good rank at the start of the season, is just make sure you have the best captain in your team every week. So the player that you believe is the best captain each week, regardless if you disagree with other people, just make sure you have them in your team. And I think having both Haaland and Salah in my team has been the difference maker because each week, I think there were 2 game weeks where I've captained Salah and he's returned better than Haaland has. So I think that's been my secret, basically, to get in the high rank. Probably another one is a couple of linked points. I'd just say it's just around general patience in players as well, and not being rash and transferring out a player if they don't score for a couple of game weeks. I think that's a really important skill to have. And what it's allowed me to do this season is I played my wild card in game week 6, but I also had 3 free transfers in the bank. And I just kept rolling those transfers after the wild card because I could have done stuff with my team, but I thought, actually, I don't know about you or what the case is with this, but I think of transfers I make where I sell a player that I know is decent and is going to play every week for another one that is decent and is going to play every week that I think is going to score more points. They never seem to actually work out that well. I call those like luxury transfers. And I just try to avoid that. But the 2 that I have made now, and it's a result of having all the accumulated transfers, I did get rid of Eze and Solanke. Those are the 2 that I have gotten rid of on what I'd call like a luxury transfer.
So, Tom, how many did you manage to save?
I played my wild card in 6, and then last week I had 5 free transfers.
5,
I used 4 of them last week to make a few moves.
Yeah, I've managed to go up to 3. I don't know. I've watched some people saying that kind of when you start saving them up, then it kind of becomes tempting just to save, you know what I mean, rather than get rid of them. So I'm trying to. I think when I get to 3, I'm kind of like trying to use them. But I guess that's also probably the fact you had such a good start to the season probably helps with saving up the transfers as well.
And I've been lucky with injuries as well. Like I haven't had a real big injury in my team that not everyone else has had to deal with. And I think one of the changes that have been made in FPL this year, which I think it's not gone under the radar, but I think it's something I've certainly taken advantage of, is it's the fact you can roll transfers after a wild card. I think that's such a big change in the game. And it's basically meant that I've played 2 wild cards because I've had 5 transfers as well. I've played 2 wild cards before game week 10, basically.
Yeah. Can I blow your mind?
Go for it.
I had Eze and Fernandez in game week 1, and I've still got them now, and I've wild carded.
Bloody hell!
That shows why I'm 5 million, really, doesn't it?
It does, but no one can tell me. And I've never had Bruno, and I got rid of Eze, but no one can. I won't accept from anyone that they're bad FPL picks. I just don't think they are. I still think they're good picks. They will at some point come good.
They both got assists this week, and I think Bruno's got some nice fixtures coming up, hasn't he?
And he'll have a new manager, and I feel for Bruno because he just doesn't have players to finish the chances he creates, does he?
No,
and he hasn't had a penalty yet.
I love watching him. Who's your favourite Man United player in?
I must say, as a Man United fan, I've really struggled to like any of our players at the moment. I don't know if that's a controversial thing to say, but I find a lot of the squad quite hard to like as players. Right now, I'd probably say it's between probably Harry Maguire and Matthias de Ligt. And Onana, actually. I quite like our goalkeeper, Onana. I think he's a pretty tough cookie because he's had a lot of abuse since he started for us.
He's got quite an eccentric style, isn't he?
He does.
Yeah, I like it. Any other general advice, Tom?
General advice for FPL? Yeah, for me, the 2 things I try and say is just, patience and make sure you got the best captain in your team.
Yeah.
And if you're unsure about making a transfer, if you're like hovering over the button and you're not sure about doing it, don't do it. It's not worth it. If you're unsure, don't do it.
Yes, I would 100%.
You're best off keeping the transfer.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever made an early transfer and not regretted it. Really, even if it's gone well, you still spend the rest of the week up till the deadline worrying about it.
Oh God, yeah.
Thanks so much for joining me, Tom, for my first video. It's we had a few technical issues beforehand, and Tom's been very patient waiting for me to try and work out how SteamYard works and stuff.
Oh, it's my pleasure. You've been much quicker than I was on my first one, mate. So don't worry about it. And yeah, it's been my absolute pleasure to join. If you I'll make sure to share the links on my Twitter and YouTube and stuff as well. So just send them across when it's up, mate, and I'll do that.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll try and get up in the next hour or so. So thank you very much for listening. I'm hoping to have some more of these without revealing too much. I've got some quite interesting names to come up. But thank you so much again, Tom, for joining me. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.